other senior public servants who are here today, the members of the press, the media, and all who are here with us today and those who might be listening in. I also want to recognize who is not here, but may be listening to us via some live streaming, the Indian High Commission to Suriname. We are here today to mark the arrival and receipt by St. Vincent and the Grenadines of a quantity of vaccines. We have just received those vaccines, and we have with us to bring remarks and to speak on this matter at the head table is our Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves, our Minister of Health, Wellness and Environment, Mr. Sinclair Jimmy Prince, and Dr. Arnold Thomas. Based on the proceedings, to make very brief remarks, followed by the Honorable Minister of Health, and then the Right Honorable Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves, and then we'll express the vote of thanks. At this point, I will therefore ask Dr. Thomas to please bring brief remarks.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Minister of Health, Wellness and Environment, Mr. Sinclair Jimmy Prince, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Keezer Beach. I am indeed happy to be here along with some of my friends, Mr. Dave Batiste, representing the Indian Heritage Foundation, and two other members also from India, Mr. Premraj Narendra and Dr. Shilpa Kakira, as part of the Indian delegation. On behalf of the High Commissioner of India to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, His Excellency Mr. M.S. Kanyal, who could not be present due to a lack of air connectivity, do extend warm greetings to all of you on the occasion of the arrival of Made in India 40,000 doses of Covishield vaccine, extended as a gesture of strong friendship and solidarity from the people and government of India to the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And as we know, SVG is led by its dynamic and charismatic leader, Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves. India supplies affordable and low-cost generic drugs to millions of people across the globe and has come to be known as pharmacy of the world and the producer of choice for vaccines. COVID-19 has unarguably affected every aspect of our daily life and livelihood, and in India is not an exception to that. But it had the whole of the society preemptive, proactive, and graded approach to combat COVID-19 right from the beginning of the corona outbreak. As a result, India has so far conducted over 215 million COVID tests with a recovery rate of 97.14% and a fatality rate of 1.4%. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that India can not only innovate but also rapidly distribute time-critical drugs to every part of the globe that needs it. In tune with its philosophy of the whole world is one family, and as a trusted and dependable friend and partner, India last year not only ensured timely access to essential drugs, but even supplied diagnostic kits and medical equipment ranging from masks, gloves, and ventilators to over 150 countries, many on a grant basis. Currently, made in India Covishield vaccine of Serum Institute and a Covaxin vaccine developed entirely indigenously by Bharat Biotech are in use in India. And I have just been informed that the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, had his vaccination just yesterday with this one. So in addition, there are 7 COVID-19 vaccine candidates, some in advanced stages and some in different phases of development, and these vaccines are expected to be rolled out between April and July 2021. Simultaneously, as a responsible stakeholder in the global supply chain under the Vaccine Maitri or Friendship Program, India has so far delivered over 7 million doses of made-in-India Covishield vaccines to 15 countries on a grant basis, and 25 countries, including this region, are under transportation/approval process. Besides, made-in-India Covishield vaccines supplied to COVAX facility will be helping over 60 countries to begin their inoculation process. India remains committed to use its high-tech biopharma infrastructure to serve and protect humanity. India hopes that this genre of friendship will help the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in their fight to contain and eradicate this corona pandemic and further deepen bilateral relations between the two friendly countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thomas, and we do appreciate you bringing those remarks on behalf of the Indian High Commissioner to Suriname. At this point, we will invite our Minister of Health, Wellness and Environment, the Honorable Sinclair Jimmy Prince, and he'll be bringing to us brief remarks. Minister Prince.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and Mrs. Gonsalves, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Arnold Thomas, other members of the Indian Heritage Foundation delegation, members of the press, our listeners to the various media here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Good afternoon. Today is indeed a very good day for the Ministry of Health. It is equally a very good day for our fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, which is ravaging the entire globe. Of course, we today received 40,000 vaccines from the government of India, and this comes in the wake of 5,000 which we got some time ago that came from the generosity of the Dominican government. Of course, those also came from India. The Indian government, we have noticed, has been making a tremendous effort to dent and to thwart the vaccine nationalism, which threatens to derail the equity which we seek during this pandemic. We therefore salute the goodwill, the generosity, and the continued love for the Caribbean of the Indian government. We salute them and we thank them very much. Of course, the vaccination is a very important tool in the fight against the pandemic, and we have started to roll out from the 5,000 which we got before. This 40,000 is consistent in this particular policy and the strategy. Vaccination is an important intervention in the fight, and we are going to ensure that we get as many vaccines into as many arms of the Vincentian population. I've been visiting some clinics, and I see that the nurses, the other health workers are willing, ready to roll, and we intend to start our program, to ramp up our program immediately. I know we have discussed, and we have some very interesting ways and strategies in which we would get people vaccinated. I know, of course, that there is a lot of bad press out there with respect to the vaccines. I hope that you, the press, would continue to help us to ensure that the propaganda and the misinformation that is out there, that kind of propaganda is overruled and overturned, and that many of our people will be able to take these vaccines without much murmur. I, at this moment, would like to say that the staff of the Ministry of Health are very grateful for the persons who have been collaborating with us in trying to get these vaccines out. On Wednesday, we will have at the Victoria Park, this is one of the strategies, people walk in and get vaccinated. We will do this in other areas of the country. We intend to target small villages where there are shut-ins and other vulnerable people and they can't get to the various clinics. We have strategies to deal with that. When we have our press conference tomorrow, we will give you some more details on that. But as I said before, we are ready to ramp up this, and we hope that by the end of this month, or the middle of the next month, we will have had over 50,000 people vaccinated. We're hoping for that, and we hope it comes to fruition. So thank you very much, and I once again ask that you put your shoulder to ours and help us to collaborate and deal with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. And we all will have to rally around and heed the call. Let us put shoulder to the wheel and ensure that we do the responsible and right thing. At this point, we have with us our Honorable Prime Minister, and he's ever so present. You would recall that he was one of the first to be vaccinated, leading by example, as always, and we are so happy to have him here today. So we would ask the Honorable Ralphie Gonsalves, Dr. Honorable Ralphie Gonsalves, to address us at this point, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Permanent Secretary. The representative of the Indian High Commission, Dr. Arnold Thomas, and other members here representing the Indian High Commission, friends from India, who are working here at the medical school. We're very happy to have Jimmy Prince here with us, the Minister of Health, and Simone Kiza Beach, the Chief Medical Officer, and very, very pleased to see our brother Baptiste from the Indian Cultural Organization in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's a very important organization building a sensibility and sensitivity towards the contribution, the immense contribution of that component of our population which comes from the Indian subcontinent. Other members of the Ministry of Health and API and members of the media, very happy to be here today for us to receive from my dear friend, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the government and people of India, 40,000 doses of the Covishield AstraZeneca vaccine. It is now the received and accepted wisdom by epidemiologists medical personnel, all scientific persons across the world, that a very important tool in the overall toolbox to address efficaciously the COVID-19 pandemic is the vaccine. It's not the only tool in the toolbox. We have the mask, and for those who are seeing me without the mask, I'm more than 6 feet away from anybody who is here. So the chances of the risk of anybody getting COVID from me in these circumstances are almost nil. And we have to do our hand sanitization, and we keep our physical distancing, even while we have the vaccine. And that will be so for a while until certainly we get what is called population immunity. I rather say population immunity rather than the accepted scientific term of herd immunity. Because from the time I was a boy, as a farmer, I know that herd relates to a herd of cattle. But I understand the euphemistic language, but I prefer to say population immunity. We have built very strong relations with the Republic of India. You know, I was reading a book recently entitled Freedom at Midnight. Very popular book. Sold millions of copies. One of the authors, a Frenchman, about the struggle towards independence in India. And I had it hanging around, and when I look in for my book, Eloise was always pinching it and reading, and when I want to have it, I said, listen, leave my book now. But the reason why I was rereading it is that I wanted in this year in particular, well, last year, to have a greater reminder of the phenomenal contribution of India to the struggles for national liberation, for India's immense contribution to peace and stability, India's contribution towards a religious sensibility, though not based on Christianity, that it is, the Hindu religion is one of peace and calm, and of course the same thing with Islam, and there are millions and millions of Muslims who are in India, and of course before the partition, before Pakistan was created, that the Indian subcontinent, you had for centuries Indians and Muslims, and of course Christians, and Zoroastrians and other religious groups living together. And there was the political divide. And successive Indian governments, and especially that of Prime Minister Modi, have been making a good outreach into Latin America and the Caribbean, and very much so to the Indian diaspora. I myself visited India. When I was in the opposition, I visited India when Indira Congress ruled India. And of course, I paid an official visit to India not too long ago and developed a good friendship with my brother, Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister. And when I wrote to him for 40,000 vaccines, enough to 40,000 doses to immunize 1/5 of our population, 20,000. Within 2 to 3 days, he responded. And think of this, I sent the letter through two channels. One, to the Indian High Commissioner, non-resident Indian High Commissioner, who is resident in Suriname. And I sent it also through our permanent representative at the United Nations to hand deliver to the Indian permanent representative. I don't know which got faster to my brother Modi, but it got fast enough because within 3 days he responded and said, yes, I will send you your 40,000 doses of the vaccine. And I want to thank him for his prompt response. And I want to thank the government and people of India. Now, persons in our part of the world who are always expecting that when you talk about vaccines and pharmaceutical products, people think of Europe and the United States. Well, the Serum Institute is the largest producer of pharmaceutical products. And it is the Serum Institute Life Sciences PVT Limited that through that entity that we have received the vaccines. And I have in my hand here, apart from all the other commercial type documents for the customs, the certificate of analysis detailing everything, and a National Control Laboratory batch release certificate, again detailing the batches and all the requisite documentation which we require under our law, but which is also recognized. These are the standards internationally. We have also indicated to the Indian government that we are interested at the appropriate time to access a quote-unquote homegrown vaccine, COVID vaccine called Covaxin. I was advised to do so by the medical authorities here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As you know, they are going through their 3rd stage trials, and one expects that they will be done successfully, because we have to remember that the vaccines, they have an efficacy for about a year, and then you'll have to get your quote-unquote booster. So we need to make arrangements not only for now, for this first round of vaccines. I've been advised we need to make arrangements appropriate, continuing, because we have to live well with this virus. That's just a fact of life. Now, in order to have what is called population immunity, you get different persons give you different epidemiologists give you different numbers. But a number somewhere between 70 and 80% is what I've been advised that we would require 70 to 80% of the population. What we are advised would be required to have population immunity. Well, we have 110,000 persons. 70% is 77,000. Of course, as we know, currently, the vaccines would not be offered to persons below the age of 18. I know Israel, for instance, offers the vaccine from 16 upwards. And we'd certainly, no doubt we will get there. But at the moment, 18 and above. We have about 30,000 persons in this country below the age of 18, which means we are talking about 80,000 persons who are available. So a number somewhere around 70,000 plus would be a good number for us to get, for us to get us close to a perfect scenario as conceivably we can get, and we want to do so in the swiftest possible time. Because only when we do so, all over the world, that we are going to be able to return to some normality. And that's why I've made a point repeatedly recently, every day I go to work, the two things which dominate my thought processes and actions daily can be summarized simply as jabs and jobs, J-A-B-S and J-O-B-S. And the jobs are connected, among other things, to the jabs. And that is so in the source markets for our tourism in North America, in Canada, and the US, and in Western Europe, including Britain. But of course, all over the world. And the mantra of the World Health Organization, which is accepted by all of us, all governments, and all peoples, that no one is truly safe until everyone is safe. And I'm using that pitch again to encourage everyone, to advise everyone that the best thing you can do in this time is to help yourself and your family and your neighbor. And your neighbor means everyone in your country and in the world. But everyone is our neighbor. That's not my definition. That's the definition which comes from the book of Luke. The definition contained in the story about the Good Samaritan. And certainly in this case, Prime Minister Modi, a Muslim, has demonstrated for the Caribbean that he's an exceptional Samaritan. We have issued a statutory rule and order under the hand of the Minister of Health, as advised by the medical authorities headed by the Chief Medical Officer, to give emergency authorization to 6 vaccines. We have given to Pfizer, Moderna, Oxford AstraZeneca, Covishield AstraZeneca, which is the one manufactured through the Serum Institute in India. It's the same vaccine as Oxford AstraZeneca. And we have given emergency authorization also for Johnson & Johnson, and we have given for the Sputnik out of Russia. Now, the advice from CARPHA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, is that they would urge immediately that we should give emergency authorization for any vaccine which has been approved by the WHO or by the national entities which approve vaccines in the United States, in Canada, in Britain, in Switzerland, and the European Union. They do not tell you not to do other vaccines. We have to make our own judgments on the basis of the available science before us. And you will see, for instance, the WHO approved Oxford's AstraZeneca after Britain had already rolled out 15 million doses of AstraZeneca to its population. So the WHO comes to the table, but they have certain involved processes which may be beyond those of the national entities. You see, we had put in place also Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson has just been approved by the FDA. It hasn't been approved yet. The FDA in the USA, it hasn't been approved yet by the WHO, but it's before the WHO. The same thing in relation to the Sputnik. The Sputnik is not yet approved by the WHO. It is approved, it has received the authorization in Russia, and dozens of countries outside of Russia, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and countries which have a very, very strong regulatory bodies, Argentina, Mexico, United Arab Emirates, and the like. But it's important for us to do the authorizations, the emergency authorization for those where we have the scientific information as reviewed by the medical authorities here. Like, for instance, the Sputnik. We received the relevant information under confidential cover. But very importantly too, our authorities studied the Lancet, which is a prestigious publication in medicine in the United Kingdom, which gave the thumbs up for the Sputnik. In any event, if you await until you have one of the so-called Western countries give the approval to the Sputnik, or to wait until the WHO gives the approval, because the Sputnik is now before the WHO. They're doing the pre-qualification. In fact, it's now a rolling authorization. You would not be able to get into the supply chain at all. For instance, when I wrote in relation to the Sputnik, I had an intermediary working, but that was only one track. I know Foreign Minister Lavrov. We've developed a good friendship. Foreign Minister in Russia. I wrote him, and immediately he sent a letter to his president, who gave the okay for the entity I've been advised in Russia, that is to say, the Sovereign Fund, which will address the research into it, and also the production. And that body is to get in touch with us with the details about quantities, time of delivery, prices, and the like. Guyana has done the same thing. I'm not sure if Barbados has done the same thing as yet. But if you don't go early into the supply chain with your authorization, though you don't get it yet, you wouldn't even be considered. So that is important. Because the first question they asked when we sent the letter, immediately the response came by, well, has there been emergency authorization? We said yes. Then the consideration. Because as you know, that across the world, the developed world, we have had something which is not very nice, something called vaccine nationalism. You may recall that in September last year, when I made a speech at the United Nations virtually at the General Assembly, I raised the issue that the way things are going, we may well find with the vaccines, because yet none had been approved, they hadn't been at particular stages, but countries were pre-ordering, rich countries, for far more doses than they need. And I said that I fear that on this distribution, we may well have a condition of only rich lives matter. And it turned out that 17% of the world's population, clustered in a few wealthy countries, and control of over 60% of the vaccines which have been produced. Now, clearly you have to navigate the waters collectively, and at the same time you have to do so individually, bilaterally. The WHO, in its collective wisdom, and the ACT accelerator platform through the WHO, devised a very good framework to have vaccines distributed on the basis of equity and affordability. A very sound principle, and in accordance with the idea that no one is truly safe until everyone is safe. And through two organizations with the WHO, one called CEPI, which is the Coalition for Epidemiological Preparedness and Inoculation, and Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. They devised COVAX with financing from countries all over the world, including India, but the United States of America put money, Britain, Canada, other European countries, the World Bank. And the idea is, under the facility called COVAX, that both all levels, rich, middle income, and low income countries would go to COVAX for vaccines. This didn't prevent other countries going bilaterally. And there are 92 countries, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which are signed up under a particular medium in COVAX called the AMC, the Advanced Market Commitment. And we are one of the Advanced Market Commitment countries, where we'll be given 20% of our population in vaccines. Will be allocated them. Of course, we can buy outside of that. And that amounts, taking into account 2 doses, that amounts to 45,600. Well, we were supposed to get the first 1 quarter, 30% of that 45,600 we should have had them in hand already. But because of supply chain problems, they do not look as though they're going to be here until towards the end of March. That would be 11,000 and something doses. And the communication which we have received is that they would be delivered to us, the 45,600, before the end of May. But those dates are indicative, and those dates are dependent upon the availability. They always tell you that. And you probably saw, and I'm explaining all of this to you so that the media can carry the information. And I tell you, the stuff is in my head like second nature, because I'm dealing with it on a daily basis. That the Director General of WHO, the World Health Organization, you saw him on TV about a week or so ago saying, and you'd have seen the reports in the print media, that because rich countries have been ordering a lot of vaccines, they have been cutting across the WHO in their ability to acquire on a timely basis vaccines for COVAX. That's in a nutshell what you're saying. Now, if we didn't go bilaterally with India, we would not have had today vaccines. If we didn't go bilaterally with India, and Prime Minister Skerritt in Dominica, Prime Minister Motley, because we got our first 5,000 of the same Covishield AstraZeneca from Dominica. Just like Grenada is not yet receiving, but Grenada would in a couple of weeks' time. But we are giving Grenada 5,000 of ours, 5,000 doses. But we have to help one another. So you would see that you have to be proactive, and you have to be keeping the calculations in your mind. Now, if we need, let us say, 80,000 vaccines, 80,000 doses, sorry, for 80,000 persons, that's 160,000 doses. We have at the moment, there's 40, plus the 5 we got from Dominica. Well, we'll subtract back the 5, which we are giving to Grenada, so we have 40. And by May, before the end of May, we'll have another 45,600. That's 85,600. It means, therefore, we need to pick up another 70,000 doses, which is why we are on the lookout through other sources, and that's why we have gone to Sputnik. That's why we are on the African Medical Supplies Platform. The African Union consists of 1.3 billion people, same population size of India, bigger landmass, but India is more densely populated. across 54 countries in Africa, the African Union. They're buying in bulk for their 1.3 billion people. But they said, because we in the Caribbean are seen as the 6th region of Africa, and they said they want to involve us, which is 1.5 million vaccines they have allocated to purchase on our behalf from whichever source is the approved vaccine, including, of course, AstraZeneca and Covishield AstraZeneca. You know, when we talk, for instance, at the United Nations Security Council about the 3 African countries which are on the Security Council, that there's a 3+1, the African 3+1. The +1 is St. Vincent and the Grenadines on the Security Council. It manifests itself in every way. So when people ask you, how is the purpose of you being on the Security Council and all this thing about linking with Africa? It manifests itself in a number of different ways, you know. This is only one way. St. Vincent's allocation, which we will purchase under the African Medical Supplies Platform, would be just over 21,000 out of that 1.5 million doses for CARICOM countries. And then the Mustique company has offered us between 1 million and 1.5 million EC dollars to purchase 100,000 doses of AstraZeneca, Oxford AstraZeneca. As you've heard me say elsewhere, the head of the Mustique Charitable Trust is a wonderful lady, Dora Lowenstein, who owns a home in Mustique. Her family has been there for many, many years. And she has a close relationship with the persons at Oxford University who negotiated with AstraZeneca the agreement. But even though she may have an inside contact, so to speak, there's a problematic supply chain. And in order to assist and buttress with that, I have written Prime Minister Boris Johnson to help in this regard, because his Foreign Secretary spoke at a very special Security Council meeting on vaccines. In fact, I spoke immediately after him. He was in the chair, the Foreign Secretary, and he spoke very well. And I left the meeting, well, the virtual meeting from Zoom in the cabinet room, and went straight to my office and tried to get Boris on the phone. I couldn't get him. So I sent him a letter to see if, and we have the money to buy there. Similarly, there's a donor, a homeowner in Canawan, a person who I know well, a Canadian. He's putting up $400,000, and he and another person with a charity is hoping to raise another $400,000, which would make it $800,000. That would be 2 million EC dollars, also to purchase vaccines. Clearly, with all the vaccines I'm talking about where we are looking forward to, and in our budget we have $1.6 million to purchase vaccines. The money is already in the Treasury for that purpose. That's separate and distinct, and that is ring-fenced in the consolidated fund. We will have more vaccines if all of these things come through than we need for the first round of vaccinations to give everybody 2 doses. But there, some of our neighbors may not have as many, and if that is the case, we will give. But in any event, by December this year, January, we have to get vaccines again. because they last you, the efficacy is for a year or thereabouts. So you have to be in the chain. So up front now, you have to be making arrangements. Like for instance, I was speaking with this, once we get into COVAX, we're not going to need the 140,000 from Russia. We'll need some. I spoke to the ambassador this morning, gave him an idea roughly how much we need so that they can distribute to us. We're not greedy. We don't, in any case, it doesn't make sense you have the vaccines in cold storage and they run out on you, because I know, I mean, these vaccines here, I see on the, and Simone can correct me, I see the expiry date here is the 27th of June this year. So I have to, these have to be administered. These things have to be rolled out very swiftly. Because, and that's why I get very impatient and a little dismayed would be too strong a word. I get disappointed that some people are saying that they don't want to take the vaccines. The difficulties to get the vaccines are real. So this is an important matter for us. I know that people are saying that they're going to wait, they're going to see, they're going to, well, can't wait too long. Can't wait too long. You want to get back to normalcy, it is better we all take the vaccine as soon as we possibly can. I just want to say that the United States of America, through the U.S. Embassy, wrote to us indicating that they have vaccines which they would want to give to us, and mean also the region, not just in Vincent and Grenadines. After they have satisfied their population on whatever surplus they have, and that is the language which has been used by Britain also, and that's the language that has been used by Canada. Well, I've advised all those concerned, and I've spoken directly to representatives of the American government and the British government, that I would wish very much if they were to alter the formulation and said that they will allocate vaccines to us from what they have, rather than from the surplus of what they have. Because I say you by doing so, you negate your own generosity, and I have absolutely no doubt that they are generous. Because those of us who have been brought up on the proposition of the widow's mite, we know that the noblest form of generosity is not to give from the surplus that you may possess, but from the little that you have. And that is deep in our Christian ethics, and I think it's in the Hindu ethics, it's in the Islamic ethics. And I believe, in fact, one of the representatives said that, jokingly, they said, Prime Minister, we should hire you when we're putting out these press releases. I said, well, you don't need to hire me, you just need to make a call and ask me what I think about this, and I will tell you straight off, because I've been around a long time. And when you're around as long as I have been, you have a tendency to apply your heart to wisdom and to see things in a particular manner. So this is the framework which we have. We have from India today. In the immediate offing, we have from COVAX. We have prospective from the African Medical Supplies Platform. from the Epidemiological Institute in Moscow for the Sputnik. I've already registered our interest in relation to Covaxin from the other biotechnology entity in India. And we have already registered our interest with our Cuban brothers because they're doing the stage 3 trials for the sovereign. And we have to have it rolled out in a way that we get enough now. And we have ourselves in the supply chain for December, January. Unless we do it that way, we could be left whole in the bag. Now, I would say this. I've said to Jimmy, and also I said it to Simone, that I understand that when we were rolling out the 5,000, we take people's names and encourage people to come. Now we have to do something more broadly national, apart from just having 9 clinics. Of course, I will only make a suggestion like that. I don't know the details. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't know all the resources, what they have. And I said to them, if you need additional resources, tell me. But what she reported to me over the weekend was music to my ears, that they're going to have these vaccines go to the 39 clinics and rural hospitals, health centers. And they'll have enough persons to administer them. And additionally, they're having a big outlet at Victoria Park, and that they'll be going for various sectors. They're going for the nurses and doctors, all the health workers. They're going for the police. They're going for the teachers. They're going for ministry by ministry in the public service. And they generate interest with having, without having overcrowding, but to have vaccine fairs at particular locations that people can come and get your vaccines. And they're practical things. I said to her, I said, well, people will turn up at the clinics in the rural area, maybe without a mask. We have to make sure that we have lots of masks there for people if they come in the line, to give them while they're waiting to get their vaccines and so on. We have to give now a big, huge national push, so that we have to hear from Shanika, we have to hear from Teresa Daniel, we have to hear from APIA, we have to hear from Candyman, we have to hear National Broadcasting, Brother Harry. Well, I mean, his foreparents came here as Indian indentured servants, so I expect him to be blasting the glory of India in Park Hill and North Central Wynwood. And the same thing what we're doing in Calder and Richland Park and so on and so forth. And the churches have to do it, and we have to get it going. Because the quicker we do this, the safer it is for all of us. I make the point in all this that we are not going to make it mandatory. We're not going to force anybody to take it. You have to take it in your own self-interest and the self-interest of your family members. I looked at the statistics, and I see that the cluster, I'm talking now cluster in a statistical sense, the modal cluster, the range of the age groups is between 18 years and 44 years. And the persons mainly who have COVID in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, it's not very dangerous to that group who mainly get it. But the smaller numbers of persons who are older who get it and who have comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, who have severe kidney problems, who have lupus, strokes, all of these things, that you go home, you get it, you're young and strong, you're all right, but you give your granny or you give your grandfather, or you give your old father, or your auntie. You okay, but they have a problem. So you have to consider them. You can't say to yourself, a young and strong man, I go ride this thing out. Because the number of persons who are young and strong and who get COVID, they don't go to the hospital at all. But you will give people in your family who will go to the hospital. And you will give somebody who more than likely, if they have all these comorbidities, would get sick. And for all you know, for each, if you had to trace properly, for each of those 8 persons, sadly, who are dead, maybe a younger person gave them. You got to ponder on that. So, I have given you a full story on it, on the vaccination program, the necessity and desirability of doing it. I can't do your work for you in the media, but you'd have to chop up and put in pieces and bits for people to digest what I'm talking about. In any case, I've given a large background as to where we are. And if I said anything which is wrong, I expect Simone immediately to raise her hand and say, you have misstated a particular fact, or you have given an erroneous opinion, because she has educated me a great deal on this subject, and I listen to her very, very much. In fact, I believe our respective spouses must be wondering why we spend so much time talking to each other, because I told Glenn, Simone's husband, I say, don't feel too badly if I talk to her more than you talk to her. And Eloise would say, you're talking to Simone. I said, yes, I'm talking to Simone. But this is how it has to be. Jabs and jobs. Thank you very much. And thank Prime Minister Modi and the government of people of India yet again. Thanks.
We just heard from Prime Minister Dr. Villanueva Gonzalez. The Permanent Secretary is now
very much, Prime
moving
Minister.
back to the podium.
And when I introduced the Honorable Prime Minister, I said that he was one of the first to be vaccinated in this country. And he really have never stopped being an advocate. We hear his call to be our neighbor, keeper, and to be a neighbor to everyone. We all are each other's neighbor. And that is very significant. You heard his call for us to be considerate for the persons who are around us, especially for those who are elderly. You have heard him laid out comprehensively our plan, and also the fact that the vaccines that we have earmarked, which should be sufficient to take care of us in this first round of vaccination. And we are very grateful for the role that the Prime Minister has been playing in terms of addressing the nation when he has the opportunity to, and also advocating for the use of the vaccine and for us all to become vaccinated. And we wish to thank him. At this point, we will entertain questions from the press, the members of the media. So if you do have questions, you can indicate, and to whom you wish to address the question. Live Compton?
Live Compton, such like newspaper. It seems that if in Savings we are having at least some persons wanting to take the vaccine. So I was wondering if the Ministry of Health is able to take the vaccine to the people in the communities. And then we might have someone able to come forward and say, okay, yeah, I'll take it because it's here. I don't know if we have a program like that or if we are capable of doing something like that.
You know this we just said here, that was music to my ears. What I said as music to my ears, what Simone Kisa Beach told me on the weekend. They had a big meeting on Saturday, the Health Services Subcommittee, and they worked out a program, precisely that, of taking the vaccine to the people, rather than having 9 centers. And if you look, they've done about just over 2,000 vaccinations. I noticed a very small percentage in the Georgetown Health District and in the Chateaubriand Health District. And those are 2 big districts. But we have in this country 39 clinics and several rural hospitals or health centers. If you have the vaccine, you take my constituency, you have it in Connery, Park Hill, South Rivers, Byra Clinic, Georgetown Clinic, you have it Modern Medical. That's just in my constituency. Of course, the Georgetown Health District goes all the way up to Fancy. But then when you go up further, you have clinics in Sandy Bay, Owea, and Fancy. So if at all the 39 clinics plus rural hospital health centers, that is where you'll just walk in and get your vaccine, because we have enough nurses. And they had said to me they may need some more nurses. Jimmy had made the point, and I gave the okay for them to hire. We have hired 23 additional nurses already, appointed them. And then there are nurses who have retired, and we can take them on a contractual basis to do this work for us. And I told them they can go ahead, how many they think they want are available, have them, and I'll make sure that the resources are provided to pay them. These are people who already have their pensions and so on and so forth. And it's not the money so much for them, but they have nursing in their blood. They would like to help. And there are several of them who would be able to do this quite well and make sure all the records are kept, because under the Public Health Act, in fact, any test administered for an infectious disease or any vaccine administered has to be reported as a matter of law to the Ministry of Health. So you can't have a private clinic and you do it and you think it's your private business. No, it has to be reported. So we are going to the people, and she said there's going to be a big one at Victoria Park, a big locale, and they want to go. We have to get the teachers, the police, all the health workers, the civil servants, the private sector businesses, and go at them systematically, in addition to just having the vaccines going. There are people, and people are going to line up for it, you know. But you got to wear a mask when you're lining up for it. And that's why I said that when they're lining up, we have to know that some people might forget to walk with their mask. We must have masks there to give them out in the line. I told her, I say, we have to buy more masks. We buy more masks, because I want us to see we get this vaccination done in the swiftest possible time. So the idea which you have in life of taking the vaccine to the people, the way in which you can take it is precisely this way. Take it to the people in the clinics. We have enough clinics. Every clinic in this country. I mean, you go within walking distance or driving distance, no more than 10 minutes in this country to a clinic. 39, they're scattered all over the country, plus the rural hospitals and other facilities and health centers. And we do that. And the good thing about this particular vaccine, as distinct from Pfizer, where you'd have to store it in minus 70 degrees Celsius. This one is 2 to 8 degrees. The normal refrigeration will take care of this. And in all the clinics, you have refrigerators. So we don't have a problem then. If you have a old fridge somewhere, I tell them already, don't take any chance with it. Go buy Singer, go buy OT, go wherever, buy the fridge, we pay for it. So that we get this done. We have money in the budget for these things. And these are a priority.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for the response. Chevron Macmillan, the Candyman.
Chevron Macmillan, API.
Yeah.
One of the main concerns, or the main reasons people express that they don't want to take the vaccine is they say they still have to wear the mask after they take the vaccine. So they say it doesn't make any sense. And they also say that the vaccine doesn't protect you from getting COVID. And I don't know if Dr. Beach would like to respond to that. And also, a few weeks ago, the Ministry of Health announced some new changes in the COVID regulations and guidelines. If you could explain if those changes have been relaxed or altered.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Prime Minister, Dr. Thomas, the media. First, the question about the masks. As we know, the vaccines, the initial aim of the vaccines when they were developed was to decrease the morbidity and the mortality, meaning to decrease persons getting very ill, moderately ill, and dying. So that was the first aim in the development of these vaccines, and the efficacy of these vaccines, it was reported based on that, how well they did that. So we have 92% for the Sputnik, and for Moderna, 94, and those sort of figures. So the vaccines prevent you, if you get the infection, they reduce the likelihood of you being severely ill and dying, which is what we really want to prevent. Additionally, and more evidence is coming forward, as more and more vaccines are being dispensed, and so now you have the real world evidence. We have decreased infections, decreased capacity to infect one person, infecting another. So I get the vaccine, I have the virus still, but my body is going to fight it, so I don't develop anything serious, but it's still there in my nose and in my mouth, I can still pass it on. That, the evidence is showing that is decreased, but it's not 100%. So there is still the likelihood of it happening. And so therefore we still need to wear the mask. Once you get to community or population immunity, where you have the majority of persons having decreased likelihood of being infected or passing it on, then we would consider decreasing the need to wear your mask. But once we are still building to that place, and once we still don't have 100% prevention, you still need to. But always remember, so many persons have died. You need to stop that. Your aunt, as Prime Minister said, 8 persons have died. 1 person actually said they didn't leave their homes. So that means it came in, okay? So we have to protect against the getting sick, dying, the loss of productivity, so we wear the mask. The second question was?
What about the people who are afraid they're going to die from the vaccine?
Okay, so that's another thing. There are reports out there about persons dying. There's no evidence to say that anyone has died from the vaccine. So, for example, the reporting. Every vaccine we give must be documented. Every adverse reaction must be documented and reported out of St. Vincent. And we say we share the information, you're sharing the reporting information. So that, how do we know that how many persons had adverse side effects? That's because it's being reported. So even if it's somebody who had a fainting spell or somebody who had a bad allergic reaction, that is documented and reported to WHO so that there's tracking, worldwide tracking of the results. If I take the vaccine, so I have my second dose tomorrow. So suppose something happens to me tomorrow after the vaccine. That is still reported. It has to be investigated. And so CDC put out a document some time ago about 1,100, I think, persons who died associated within the time period of having had the vaccine. All investigations show their deaths were not caused by the vaccine. If somebody commits suicide, somebody has a road traffic accident, it still has to be reported. That's the level of reporting going on. So persons might be afraid, persons might hear there were deaths because sometimes people just read headlines. There have been no reported deaths which have been attributed, caused by the vaccines. And the protocols. Okay, so we have recently changed 2 protocols, made some revisions. So the mass gathering protocol was revised it became into effect on the 27th, so Saturday. And it referred only to houses of worship. So as it is now, if you have your FET, it's still only 10 persons inside, 20 persons outside. If you are a house of worship, you are allowed to have persons that would come up to 1/3 of your regular capacity. So if I have a church that can normally hold 100 persons well spaced, I can now take 33 persons, 1/3 well spaced. So that was the major change, because it was found that the churches, the majority of them, they are in the best possible situation to control. You have a door, you're coming in, you must sanitize, you must wear your mask, you must register so that we can track if anything happens, and you control what's happening there. You continue to wear your mask. That mightn't be the case in other indoor situations. And the second protocol we changed, again, vaccinations. And we changed the protocol so that if you are coming in, you have had both doses of your vaccine, if it's Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and then when the Johnson & Johnson one rolls out, it will be 1 dose. You've had it 4 weeks since you've had that final or single dose. You come in with evidence that you have had that, and not that somebody writes a scribble note and says, I had the vaccine. We need an official document. Your quarantine period, if you're coming from a high risk, which would normally come with a negative PCR, no more than 72 hours, go into a quarantine facility for 14 days. You will come in with your negative. You would have a PCR on arrival. You will go into a facility for 7 days. You would have a third test on day 5, and if they're all negative, you will go. So we have decreased the quarantine in a facility to 7 days. Now, some persons may ask, why not abandon it completely? As the CDC, what's the level of immunization currently in the US? They have done significant amounts of immunization, so they are much further along in this journey towards community immunity. That's not the situation here, that's 1. 2, as I said before, in the same question, why do we wear the mask? We are still not 100% sure that if I have my vaccination, I come in, I can still be infected. I can still hand it to somebody else. And this is what we have been from day 1. That's why we put in the measures at the airport. That's why we ramped up. So we need to decrease the likelihood of somebody coming in. Yes, you're vaccinated, but you can still have the virus there, reduce risk. Over the next few weeks, we monitor that to see what sort of yield. So just to back up, sorry for taking so long. When we went from 5 days in a hotel to 7 days, it was because we realized that persons at 5 days who came with a negative test on arrival, when we were tested on arrival, turned up at 5 days with a positive test. So we have to be guided by the evidence. So we will see what's happening with persons coming in, and based on that, and based on the international evidence, we will make a decision. Okay?
Yeah, you know, we do things based on the science, and you would have heard very soundness in what the CMO has put forward in her response. They are not based on emotion, but she has put forward also the science and the evidence. Thank you so much. Sir Robinson?
Vincent Henry, freelance journalist. Just to follow up on what friend across there was speaking, the confidence of persons in the vaccine. A number of medical professionals, foreign medical professionals, currently in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have taken the vaccine. Do we see this as a sign of confidence in the vaccine? And how can we continue to assure those who still express reservations that you should take it, because by protecting yourself, you also protect others? How can we drive this thought process across to them? Because in my estimation, walking the street, this is the biggest hurdle to overcome. The thought processes of people that they do not have confidence in it, and that it is just a gimmick. This is the situation out there. And I don't know if the PM or you or Dr. Keyser might want to speak to that. Because if we can overcome that hurdle, PM say maybe by December, but if we overcome this, I think by June, July, the 70-80% of the population would be vaccinated.
No, I didn't say by December. I didn't say by December.
Oh, my apologies.
I say we have to look at December and January for the next round of vaccines for the sourcing. I want us, these vaccines, for instance, we got to use them before the end of June. Sorry, and I'm hoping that with our population, which is so small and compact, and we have such great facilities across the country, we're able to do it, we're able to ramp it up very, very well. I mean, Barbados is up to day before yesterday, Barbados had done 32,000 persons. Barbados has, call it roughly 300,000 people. That is in excess of 10% of their population, and they had done that in about a week's time. Week, 10 days. That's very good. So, I mean, I don't see why we can't do our business in such a rapid way. You raise something. It's not for me to answer, but for people to ponder. You said there are a lot of people from overseas who live in St. Vincent. Europeans, Canadians, Americans, so on. British. When we have the vaccines, even when the names are not done, you see them, they see the lining up. Here in Beckwith, for instance, a whole set of our visitors line up to take the vaccine. Why do you think they're doing it? Because they dotish? Not at all. They understand that they should get this and be protected. I understand that one who was visiting here called her friend in London and said, I've just had my AstraZeneca. He said, what? And I'm still waiting to get mine? No, I'm not saying that what foreigners run and go and do, we must follow fashion. But I want to suggest that they're doing this because they think that it's a good thing for them, which is a different kind of follow the fashion, to wear your trousers below your bottom. This is a good fashion to follow, I would suggest.
Prime Minister, there's been news of vaccine being developed.
Yes.
Can you speak about the advancement of the process of the conversation?
Well, as I indicated, they're doing their stage 3 trials. They should be completed by the end of this month, early next month. And I have made representations to the Cuban government, and they know that too. They will to be in the queue. In fact, through ALBA, we have, apart from Venezuela, sorry, not Venezuela, the ALBA Bank volunteering to put $200,000 US in the accounts of the 5 OECS countries who are part of ALBA. That is to say, Grenada, Dominica, St. Vincent, Grenadines, St. Kitts Nevis, and Antigua and Barbuda in our respective accounts at the central bank. But also, what has been created is a revolving vaccine bank with $1 million US, and that obviously, revolving, it means that they'll put up to $1 million worth of vaccines in that, and obviously, a prime vaccine would be the Cuban one within the context of ALBA. And of course, it costs money to produce, so we will purchase from it, but there's this revolving fund. So that we will, once the Cuban vaccine is finally approved, when they finish all their trials successfully, I expect that we would also get the Cuban vaccine. The CAFA made a report and said that they did a survey. I don't know, I didn't inquire what was the sample, but they found that of the vaccines a month ago, which people were talking about, Caribbean people had high confidence in the Cuban vaccine.
The time between?
Between jabs.
Between the jabs.
The time between jabs, vaccine, has it been adjusted at this report?
No following. That's the one.
8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah. For the 2 vaccines, for the Sputnik, it remains 3 weeks. And for the AstraZeneca, the initial recommendations, initially they had 4, then they went to 8. The final thing now is 12, and so we have settled on 10 weeks. However, there were some persons, because when we started on the 14th, some persons had their card and it's written 6 weeks. Those persons can communicate with the clinics to turn up at later, the 10 weeks, sorry. We didn't go to the 12 because we are allowing ourselves time, because somebody might, on the 10th week, might not be able to make the dose, and so you have the window, the extra 2 weeks. So right now we're going with 10 weeks for the AstraZeneca, and we're still with 3 weeks for the Sputnik. Okay?
I was reading, Simone, in the British newspapers. Every morning I read them, and I follow all the stories on several different newspapers on the vaccines and how it's rolling out. That they have found that even after the first dose, there was a fall in hospitalization, in transmissions and so on, to the tune of 92%.
Yeah. Yes. That's true.
After 1 dose.
1 dose. Significant protection, just 1 dose. So we have some persons who might be traveling in between. They've had their first dose, and they are concerned they want to speed up and get the second dose, say, in 4 weeks. We're not advising that. We're advising travel, you come back, you get your second dose around the time it's supposed to be, but they can be confident that they have decreased risk because the evidence is showing that even after the first dose, you have significant protection. Okay?
All right, we have been here for quite some time. You'll appreciate. I just wish to formally thank us all. Thank to the Prime Minister for taking time out to be here with us, the Honorable Minister of Health. I want to thank Dr. Thompson for being here with us as well. Mrs. Gonzalez, COSEL CEO, we thank you very much. Also Jennifer Richardson, and all of us, too many to mention, but we also appreciate the presence of the members from the Indian Heritage Foundation here, and those of you who are teaching at the various offshore medical schools here, we thank you very much. We wish to thank the Prime Minister of India and also the Indian High Commissioner who is resident in Suriname, also for all the work that he has done in the background. Once again, we thank the media. Thank you all, and we very much appreciate. And again, let us all be advocates for the vaccines. Thank you all very much. Sorry, I just want to thank especially as well CK Graves. They have loaned us their refrigerated trucks on 2 occasions. And he has made it very clear to me that whenever you need it, night or day, just let me know. Appreciate it. Thank you all.